Welcome to the instant sequence on a visualization tutorial. In this tutorial we will cover how to do an instant sequence on a visualization of your light display. We've started out with the SuperStar sequencer in the default CCR mode. To change that, we can click on the Tools menu and select Layout. And right here you can see it says CCR mode and visualization mode. We will select visualization mode, click OK, and what it does is it uses a visualization file in the samples directory that comes standard with the download. It has some light strings on the roof line and some around two windows here and some on the bushes, and here's a small mega tree and some more on the bushes. Now we can do an instant sequence on this very easily, the same way we always have. We click on Tools, Instant Sequence, and we can just use the defaults. Open an audio file. I'm going to use House on Christmas Street. We say Sequence All. It's analyzing the audio file and defining all the trigger points right now, and now it's actually creating the effects. When it's done, it puts those effects up at the top here, and there's a play button right here to play the sequence, but realize that clicking on this button does exactly the same thing. So I'm going to use this button. I click on play. So that's pretty cool. That's what it created, just using the defaults. And we can do our same old thing of roll dice and sequence all again. And I might note that this roll dice, it randomly selects themes up here, but this color and color by time stuff is not so random. It's programmed to always, the first time you click on roll dice, it's going to do RGBW by group and say every 4 seconds, just sort of to show you what that does. So let's see what that did.
Let me tell you about this house. There's one in every
And so you'll notice each one of the rows is cycling through the colors. This bottom row, he's white right now. Now he's going red, and the orange is close to red, so it gets turned on. And the yellow is close to green, so it gets turned on when green, and purple gets turned on with blue. So you notice it's cycling through red, green, blue, white, and now back to red. So that's pretty cool. Just to give some background here on how SuperStar handles visualizations, you notice each one of these lights here corresponds to a little square on the sequencing grid, and these window lights, they each have one square on the sequencing grid. The lights on the bushes each have one square, and each strand, each bundle on the mega tree, it has a little square, and then finally this guy has a square to himself also. And you'll notice that it sorted them by rows. These green lines show where it found rows, and then it placed the lights on those rows on the sequencing grid. And notice that this light string here is red, and that's all he has is red in him. But these window lights, they have a red string, a green string, a blue string, and a white string in them. And they are in the visualizer defined as one fixture, and each fixture is assigned to a square on the sequencing grid. And so the way this works is when an effect is applied to this square, if if that effect is red, then it only lights up the red lights in these strings. If that effect has red and green in it, then the red and the green lights get lit up. And the same applies for these bundles in the mega tree. They have red, green, blue, and white strings in them. So you know they can be turned on in different colors also. So I just wanted to let you know how that works, and I'm going to minimize this, and right behind SuperStar I have the visualizer open here, and if you launch the visualizer and then click on the file menu, then click on open, the default is for him to be in the visualizations editor directory, but you can navigate to the samples directory, and that's where you'll find the light strings file, and here is the visualization that was being used in SuperStar. You notice, like here, if we click on bushes 2, he's orange, and he's an LOR device on the regular network. He's assigned to a controller that has unit ID 01, and he's using channel 6 of that controller. I realize that circuit/address means channel on a controller. So these bushes lights, you know, they just have one set of lights on them, but the window lights, you'll notice that they have 4 sets of lights in them. This has red, green, blue, and white strings in it, and we've told it the unit ID and channel number of each one of those that each one of those lights is plugged into. And so when you define your visualization, the preferred way to do it is to do it like this, as opposed to making each string a separate fixture. If all the strings are on the window, we'll then put them in one fixture and assign them this way. And to make the megatree, you use the megatree wizard here, but I'm not going to go through that. That's not the purpose of this tutorial. I want to spend time on instance sequence here. So I just wanted to show that, and now I'm going to open a more complex visualization. We're going to go back down to the standard editor directory, and I had a customer named Kenneth Smith send me a visualization, and he actually had some CCRs in his visualization, but I've taken the CCRs out to make it more simple, and also to show that you know, you can sequence something with no CCRs in it. And this is a much larger display, a really cool display, and he actually it's the first time he'd created a visualization, and he did what so many people do, is it created a separate fixture for each string of lights. So here he has actually a better example is, well, his megatree has a separate fixture for each string of lights, and oh, but they're all in a prop, and so I don't know, maybe that's all right. But a better example is these little mini trees here. Here it says tree 2, tree 1 green, and you see he's a separate fixture, and then he says tree 1 red. Well, they're both on top of each other, and the preferred way to do it would have been to assign these red and green lights in the same fixture. But that's okay. It'll still work in SuperStar. You'll just end up with more little green squares on the sequencing grid. So let's go back to SuperStar here, and we can import that visualization file by saying File, Import Visualization, and we're just going to use all the default settings here, and we're going to select that same file, Kenneth Smith, no CCRs, And there it is. That's a really cool light display, and you'll see we have a lot more little green squares on here. And so let's do an instant sequence on this. We're going to have to, I'm going to use the same settings here and say sequence all. It's going to have to build some new stuff here. And we still have, well, no, that's one thing to note. Whenever you import a visualization file, it resets to the defaults here. So it's come up with some default settings here, and let's see what it came up with here.
Let me tell you about
Well, is that pretty cool or what? Now, most people are really impressed with this, but they'll say it's too blinky, and I agree. And I understand that's a problem, and I hope to work on that next year. But for this year, this is you're stuck with the blinkiness. I'm sorry, but there are still some really cool things you can do. One thing is to sort of do what I was showing you before, that you can we can set TCM1 here to be one more full length, and if you say RGBW by group, he's going to do the whole group of effects the same. And I'm going to say change the color every 2 seconds, and for movement I'm going to do none, and that's going to make the morph go full length the same direction every time. So we do that, and now I'm going to assign this TCM1 to the same to all 7 rows, and then in addition, well, okay, first I'm going to show you what that does. So now you can see right up here that it's cycling through red, green. Oops, let's scroll more slowly, and you can see it goes red, green, white, red, green, white. And yet what we had set was red, green, blue, white. Where did the blue go? Well, that's because this light display has absolutely no blue light strings in it. So the software sees that and skips cycling through blue. So let's play this and see what it looks like. So that's pretty cool. It's cycling through the colors, and to me that helps take the blinkiness away.
It's the one at Christmas time where folks all gather around.
Now you'll notice that each one of these rows is being triggered by a different frequency, and so they're not being, they're not synchronized to each other. What you can do is, in the timing map, if you set all 7 of the rows to be all frequencies, then they're all going to have the same triggers, and they're all going to be lined up, so to speak. So let's do sequence all. And you'll notice now, because all 7 rows had the same, actually is it just 6 rows? Let me shrink this down. Oh yeah, we can shrink this so we can see more rows, and now you can see all 7 rows are being triggered the same as we scroll through here, and it's going through red, green, white, red, green, white. And you might ask, well, why is the bottom one always white? Well, that's because the bottom one contains nothing but white lights. And I might note here, see, if we click on this, you'll notice that this is a morph that's being applied on the full length of this sequencing row. And I realize it's confusing. Row 1 is at the top here, and yet it's at the bottom here, and there's some good reasons for why it's that way. You just realize that. So here's row 2, and he's being applied along that There's row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6. So what it's doing is applying a morph across the entire sequencing row of each one of these. So let's play this and see what it looks like. So you can see it's going across the display, first red and then white, and then red, and then green. And that's pretty cool, but what would be cooler is if it went across the whole display more evenly. And the reason it's not doing that is because you notice these green lines, we've only got 4 of them. It detected 4 rows here, but the bottom row has a whole bunch of lights on it. And if we click on this, we can see that this is assigned to that light, and if we just keep on clicking, you'll see, in fact, we could just do all these guys. However, I might say, see if we set all the colors on, then it's going to anyway, you can see that's those guys, and then it ran out, and that's those guys. There's so many lights on this first row that it couldn't fit them all on one sequencing row, and it actually used the next 9 up here also. Now this one, let's erase all this. If we, you can see that's the mega tree. So it put the mega tree on its own row there. But anyway, by selecting things, you can see how it assigned things. But what I wanted to point out here in this tutorial is that this first bottom row got assigned to 3 different sequencing rows. Well, that's why when it applied a morph across here, it didn't get it applied across the whole length of the display. So the solution to that is to say import visualization again, and where it says sequencing grid max length, the default is 50. I'm going to increase that to 110, and then we import the file again, and now you can see there's only 4 sequencing rows. There's still 4 green lines here, but this time it was able to fit all the lights on this bottom row on one sequencing row up here. Now when we imported that visualization, it reset all our defaults, so we're going to have to go back and set one more full length and RGBW by group, and we'll set movement to none, and we want to set all 4 sequencing rows to TCM1, and in the timing map we want them to all be triggered the same. So let's do sequence all, and you'll see now we just have 4 rows up here, and the bottom one still only and I realize bottom really is the top. It's these top lights up here, and they only contain white lights, so that's why he never changes color. But all these others, see now this is one morph that's being applied across the whole bottom row, and that represents the whole row of lights down there. So now let's play this and see what it looks like. So now you can see it's doing a nice sweep across the whole light display from left to right, and it's cycling through the different colors. Now, is that cool or what? There has never been a way to coordinate your lights this easily before. Now, one last thing I want to show before I end this tutorial is that this movement thing is talking about moving the endpoints of the effect. In this case, the endpoints are, here's the endpoints of this morph. And if we, you can set the movement to slow right. And what that normally means is move the endpoints by 1 pixel to the right. Well, you can move this guy 1 pixel to the right, but where are you going to move him? And anyway, the software handles effects that go across the whole length of the sequencing grid. It treats them as an exception, and if you set anything other than none, it just changes direction. It just alternates between going to the left and going to the right, because that ends up being more interesting than moving them 1 pixel each time. So let's sequence all again, and this is going to do the same thing, except it's going to change direction every time. So here it's going to the left, and there it went to the right. And as long as you're not prone to seasickness, that's a really cool effect. So there's some really cool stuff you can do with that. And again, of course, you can just do, we can go set default ribbon assignment and say roll dice, sequence all, and it still comes up with some cool stuff.
Let me tell you about this.
Actually, I'm not that crazy about that one, but part of it is so you can just roll dice again, and also if we go back to our setting the frequency spectrum, this is the default going to low to high, and roll dice again. Okay, let's play that one. And that's pretty cool. Now, another thing you can do that is, like, what if you just felt this was too blinky, but you really like the mega tree? Well, like I said, it turns out that I think the mega tree, well, the mega tree plus some of these lights are all on this third row, and well, which is actually the second row from the bottom, and so that's this guy. So if you just liked the mega tree, you could and that is row 2, you could set those to none and say sequence all, and now it's only going to do, I hope I did that right, yeah, now it's just going to do the mega tree and these other lights on that row. And so if you wanted to, you could just do that and then sequence the rest of your lights manually. So that's all I want to cover in this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and have a super day.